Cowrie shells, Agbada robes, and a stunning new neighborhood, but there's still no world map. The Royalty and Legacy pack reveal is beautiful, but it's leaving a lot of us simmers asking, why can I build an African-inspired dynasty here, but not an African-inspired world? As a Sims builder, artist, and most importantly an African diasporan, I have some complicated feelings about the 21st expansion pack and what appears to be another Sims team dodge at giving us a full African inspired world. So let's break down the pros, the cons, and why this might be the most divisive pack yet. So here's what we know so far about the game. The game is called Royalty and Legacy Expansion Pack, and it's going to be the 21st expansion pack as far as I know. Apparently the gameplay trailer is supposed to drop on the 22nd of this month as well. One thing that I did find interesting though is that there's going to be the Meet the Sims article, and that's supposed to shed some more light on the actual families that we've got in this pack as well. And that's supposed to drop on the 27th of this month, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Now, this is not confirmed, and this is literally what I've seen online, but some people have suggested that this could be the final pack that the Sims are going to drop, the final expansion pack anyway. However, there are some articles that indicate that EA have said there's misinformation around this whole pack and the topic itself, so we're not too sure if this is going to be the last one or not. But the one thing we do know based on the video trailer is that we do get a royal African family, and we also get a African inspired neighborhood called Dembele. But it's not a world, which is not great. I'm gonna share more on how I feel about that later in this video, so stay tuned. Let's start with the pros. So it's not a popular opinion, but in my opinion, I feel like the Sims team are doing pretty well since they've been collaborating with Simmers in the recent years. And you're starting to see the better quality of African inspired aesthetics in the hairstyles and in the clothing. And I honestly do think that's because the Sims team are collaborating more and seem to be putting more effort into reaching out to the African community or the African diaspora community to get input on the products they produce in game. One thing that I really do love about this trailer is that it not only shows diverse hairstyles, but it also nods to like cultural nuances. For instance, in the video, you can see that the first princess has shells and beads in her hair. And for those who may not know, many African and Afro-diasporan cultures regard the cowrie shells as an indicator of wealth, especially when it's woven into the hair. So I have to give Sims a props there. They have tried to incorporate some cultural nuance into the design of this game pack. And although I have mixed emotions on this, although there is an actual world, an African-inspired world, there is an African-inspired neighborhood. I know at first this could be a letdown, but have you considered this? As someone who does a lot of sim builds, I think the Dambele neighborhood is valuable because it's going to be themed. And there are some existing worlds that I can't stand and some neighborhoods that I can't stand in The Sims because I want to build something in there, but then the building surrounding it does not match the thing I want to build. So for instance, having a neighborhood that is African themed is going to be more beneficial for me because I can build in that neighborhood with the African inspired builds that I like to do. But hey, that's just me. So another pro is that the team has worked with African diasporan simmers that have varying audience sizes. For example, they've worked with Spring Sims and Studio Gabri. I'm counting this as a pro because I'm a strong believer that independent sim builders, modders, and animators should have more recognition for the value their creations provide to us in-game. And I am glad that EA seems to be continuing with these collabs, and I hope that they continue with it in the future. And I would be remiss to mention, based on the trailer, the African outfits seem pretty good. I have seen better, but they seem pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is, many of the clothes that we see in the trailer echoes cultural similarities to that found on the African continent. I am glad that they seem to have considered some iconic clothing such as the Gele and Agbada. And I also tip my hat to the fact that the team incorporated cultural nuances into the clothing. For instance, there is a photo showing that there is coordinated family traditional attire. The reason why I'm noting this is because having coordinated family traditional attire is such a iconic and cherished aspect in many African cultures. And on a lot of occasions, a lot of the patterns that we see in an African clothing has symbolic meaning. With that in mind, because they've done so well on the attire, I do hope they put the same attention to detail and cultural nuances throughout the pack on different features. So for instance, in the trailer, we can see that the Sims are dancing near the end of the trailer, which is great. It looks like a waltz. I'm not up on dancing, so drop a comment below if you know what type of dance it is. I'm gonna call it a waltz. They're waltzing, which is good, but I hope they actually incorporate more diverse dance styles in this pack. I'm not going to say that they're not, because I'm going to wait till we see the gameplay trailer, but I really do hope they incorporate more diverse dance moves in this pack outside of just the waltz. And the reason why I'm saying that is there are so many Sims 4 animators and modders that have created amazing poses and animation and dance moves. So I don't think it's too far-fetched for Sims to work with some of these collaborators and actually create or recreate dance moves that are relevant to different cultures. And it doesn't have to be fancy dance moves, but there are some movements that you can do, or some dances that are culturally specific, and it would be great if they do incorporate that into the game. But we're not going to know until the gameplay trailer, so I'm going to leave that point there. So I know I keep harping on about it, but the biggest pain for me is that there is still no African-inspired world in this pack. There are some people that have suggested that EA Sims team were going to manifest an African-inspired world and give it to us for free, but for some reason they dropped it. And though the team have made several attempts to incorporate African-inspired representation in The Sims, smaller initiatives like the West African DLC drop, which happened in November last year, has had lukewarm reception. I think the main reason why it received lukewarm reception was because of the way the DLC was dropped and at the time it was dropped. So in case you missed it, the West African DLC dropped in late 2025, but this coincidentally occurred around the same time with the company's buyout. And why were many Simmers upset with the buyout? Well, a lot of Simmers were concerned that the corporate shift could impact Max's acclaimed dedication to cultural inclusivity in The Sims 4. Therefore, many people questioned if the dropping of the DLC was actually a genuine attempt to increase inclusiveness in The Sims 4 gameplay, or if it was being used as some sort of crisis management strategy, basically just to appease people. Who knows? I like to think that they were actually being genuine and they wanted to incorporate West African culture into The Sims in some way before launching this expansion pack. Yes, I admit, having no African-inspired world in The Sims 4 up to date is frustrating, but it's not surprising. But I just want to make a distinction. First of all, Africa is a continent with diverse cultures, and as such, Africa should not be presented as a monolithic identity or style. For instance, while they have introduced West African culture into The Sims 4, the pessimist in me has to highlight that this is one region of Africa. Other African regions and Africans in the diaspora, for example, Latin America, the Caribbeans and Europe, are not represented in the game. Therefore, it would be hard for the Sims team to hit every cultural pillar of a specific group. But as I said again, this does not mean that it's okay they've not made an African-inspired world to date. The second thing I want to highlight is that Sims 4 is regarded as one of the most immersive and customizable games, and as such, it can be hard to meet everyone's desires. However, this does give us, the Simmers, an opportunity to support other modders in the community. And if you're really feeling brave, you could choose to become a modder yourself and create worlds, foods, and cultures that can be enjoyed in the game itself. So another point I want to make is that we won't know until the gameplay trailer comes out. But the Sims 4 team could make the Sims 4 game more meaningful to the African diaspora community by building upon what they've already done. What I mean is that, yes, there is more West African inspired attire and food in the game now, but there is more to a culture than just fashion and food. I do hope that we see more variations in the gameplay that's dropping on the 22nd. And what I mean by that is, even if the team can't develop an African inspired world, they should explore this. For instance, they could create an African inspired radio station emulating Afrobeats music. After all, the trailer, launched on the 15th, seemed to emulate Afrobeat sounds. Could this be a wink to such feature in the actual pack? Overall, yes, it's aggravating that in the last 20 years of playing The Sims, there is no world reflecting the cultures similar to those that raised me. It's not surprising, however. The lack of diverse representation in said media has also been the driving force behind the art and the content I make across all my public platforms. I don't have a solution to many of the concerns raised in the simming community, but I do believe we need to be the change we want to see. Even if that means learning new skills or providing thought pieces and feedback on the state of the industries we participate in. Like I said, if EA won't build the world we want, maybe it's time for us to do it ourselves. But either way, we've got the gameplay trailer coming on the 22nd and a deep dive article on the families on the 27th. Until then, I want to hear your verdict. Is a detailed neighborhood enough for you, or is the lack of a full world a deal breaker for buying this pack? Drop your thoughts below because I read every single one and I appreciate it so much. Thanks for watching, guys, and happy simming. Bye!